Yep. Microphone, headset microphone, that's better.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the ANZCAR Cup here at New Hampshire Motor Speedway. We are coming towards the end of our season now. We're in the last 6 of our races, of course. Last 5 of our races, of course. There we go. My brain missed out a race there. Last 5 of our races, of course, now, and we're coming to a close of the season. But right now, we have qualifying for this unique short track. Now, New Hampshire is one of those circuits that can be a little bit tricky to get used to, unfortunately, because it is a very flat circuit, as you're seeing now out on the track. The drivers have to be very careful here because there is no banking. It's very easy to go loose, especially when you go through turns 1 and 2. So getting the car to hook up here is an absolute nightmare sometimes, but when it works very, very well. Josh Micklemore taking the lead there in qualifying, and Jason Martin just slotting in behind him. Of course, the winners at our Kentucky Fried Thriller last week out for the Cup Series. Josh Micklemore, of course, taking the win in that race. Jason Martin taking the win in that race, just in front of Josh Micklemore, with 0.077 of a second between the two. So hopefully we'll be up for another interesting race like we had last time out. Danny G slotting in there in 3rd place now behind his 2 teammates. Just sitting in 4th now is Jason Hartigan for the JP Simshed team. So Mitch Motorsport 1, 2, 3 with a JP Simshed car in 4th. Ayrton Smith getting a fantastic lap into 5th. And Edward Foster now coming up into 6th place. Will he be able to get a slightly better lap time on the next one out? We'll soon find out for that one. We'll have to see how he goes there. But doesn't look like it. So Edward Foster's going to slot in there in 6th, just ahead of a teammate of Lachlan. Joshua Carroll Walden in 8th, with Bradley Allison in 9th at the moment, Norman Clark 10th. So a few drivers still out there at the moment. A couple of cars are just finishing up. Michael Skurlock just getting ready for a run at the moment, trying to get some heat in those rear tyres. Overcooking it a little bit though there, unfortunately, and turning the car around. He might have to try again for that one. Of course, getting the heat and tyres up to operating temperature is a tricky thing to do and an important thing for a circuit like this. On these very flat, short ovals, you want to have tyre temperature and brake temperature up for that flying lap, because that's going to gain you a couple of tenths of a second, and that can be the difference between 1st and 10th position. So we'll see how Michael Skurlock does. At the moment, the only car out on track, so hopefully he'll give us a good little bit of a performance out there. Unlucky last time out to get caught out in his position, but did manage to sort of get back to the race after a bit of an incident. Just as we're watching this, though, we're just going to go through the championship standings as they are. So currently in 1st place is the man on your screen now, Michael Skurlock, who's taking the lead over Danny G. In 3rd place is Edward Foster with Micklemore in 4th. 5th is Jason Martin with Hamish Gallagher in 6th. Very strong season for Gallagher. 7th is Norman Clark with Jason Hartigan 8th. Stephen Williams is 9th, and Matthew Pruitt is in 10th at the moment for the championship standings. And of course, in 5 races' time, it's going to be the chase. So an important place to be for when we get to Darlington for that first round of the chase. Of course, we have Michigan, Watkins Glen, Dover, and Daytona before that can happen. How will Skurlock do on these laps? He's managed to pop it up into 5th place. Good run for Skurlock. He's going to try and go for that 2nd lap, see if he can get any more speed. The car does snatch out on him, and he remains in 5th place there. The other tricky thing about a track like this is sometimes your first lap is your best lap, because your tyres and your brakes do overheat quite quickly here. And when that happens, it can become very hard to get the pace out of the car. So everybody's going to start gridding up now and going to get ready for the race. And as we do that, we will go through our starting positions. So, on the first row of the grid is Josh Mickelmore and Jason Martin. On row 2, it's Danny G with Jason Hartigan. Row 3 is Michael Skurlock with Ayrton Smith. Row 4 is Edward Foster with Lachlan. Row 5 is Joshua Carroll Walden with Bradley Allison. Row 6 is Norman Clark with Devon Stove. Row 7 is Brendan Bartlett with Phil Otto. Row 8 is Kai Sloggett with Raymond Yeager. Row 9, Tristan Koch, Matt Hunter. 10 is Aidan Schwartz and Darren Burnfield. And on the last row of the grid, we've got Hamish Gallagher and Stephen Williams. So Stephen Williams is going to want to get a good finish tonight, of course, to try and make sure he can lock himself into the chase. A guy that's not out here tonight is Matthew Clewett. So that could be tricky for him, of course, but there are drop rounds to come as well. So these positions aren't finalised for the lower positions of the chase, but up the top it's getting pretty much set in stone as we go and get ready for the start of this race. Now, this will be a very different race to what we saw at Kentucky last time out. You do get a little bit of slipstreaming here, a little bit of the draft, but it's not as effective. It's harder to run side by side. Here, it's all about tyre management, and tyre management is going to be key to this race. The drivers weren't having too many issues with the lefts, from what I've heard from red practice runs. However, they were getting the car very loose when it went through the edge of the turn. So when you're hitting the mid-apex of the corner, that's where the car generally snaps, and we did see quite a few incidents during the practice session. Of course, this track is quite wide, as you can see on the screen there, but when you're racing here at upwards of 250 to 300 kilometers per hour, it does become very narrow very quickly. And of course, one little tap into the wall can be the difference between finishing the race in first place and not finishing at all. So Josh Mickelmore and Jason Martin will lead us off a familiar front row. Jason Hartigan is going to be quite hungry back there, and another person that's going to be quite hungry to try and get a win is going to be his teammate of Edward Foster, who's been having some fantastic results in the Grand National Series, taking out a hat-trick of wins, but not had one yet for the Cup Series. So he's going to want to try and get that win in, just so he can actually get it there and say he's got one, because currently he's the highest positioned man without a win this season. But consistency has been key for him. So pace car will come in on the very few moments, and we'll be going green for New Hampshire. And away we go.
Green flag.
Great start there for Josh Mickelmore. Absolutely lightning start for him. He nailed that one. Perfect for his positioning. Everybody looks to be away clean, which is a good thing for this race. Jason Martin going out a bit wide. He's going to succumb to Danny G, as well as Michael Skurlock is looking for it. And we've got an instant a bit further back. It's Kai Sloggett. Kai Sloggett has gone into the wall. It looks like he's just lost it going through turns 2 and 3. Got underneath the car in front, which would have been Brendan Bartlett. And the car has just spun around on him, and into the back he goes, into the wall. Not much damage there, so it's going to be relatively damage-free for his car. Not going to cause too much issue there, especially on the back of the car. But that is not the way you want to start off the race, but easy to do here, unfortunately. And joining me up in the box as well tonight, and thankfully back on the cameras as well, is Mr. JP. JP, how you going?
Carl, I'm doing really well, thanks, mate. And yourself?
Not too bad, thank you. It's good to have you back in the booth. Nice to have you back on the cameras as well, and thanks for joining us tonight. We saw a little bit of a chaotic start there, and it's a tricky thing on these kind of tracks. It's very easy to lose a car, and you don't want to do it too early, but it can happen, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely, and this track does look like it's going to have some fairly heavy consequences.
Yes, it bites back quite painfully. We've got a few tracks similar to this layout in the NASCAR series. We were running actually at North Wilkesboro last night in the Grand National Series, and that was a very much a smaller track, but a similar track nonetheless. Very flat short track oval, and it's very easy to get the car around. The one saving grace about it all, though, is the fact that the speeds aren't quite as high on these tracks. So generally when you go round, damage isn't always as bad. So sometimes a little bit of damage is not going to end your race, and a little bit of tap into the wall isn't going to end it either. But the key here is going to be tyre management. This early in the race, no point in pitting, but in about 10 to 15 laps time, I imagine we'd have seen all the leaders coming in to slap a fresh pair of tyres on. Of course, one of the big things that we do have now is the tyre limit of 4 sets of tyres, so they will be thinking about that as well.
Yeah, that's going to really play into things, and it looks like the Mitch Motorsport guys are really in the box seat to start this race. Fairly long way to go, though, 150 laps with this one, but they seem to be where they want to be, and they're going to be able to take, I guess they're going to be hoping to take command of this race fairly early.
Yeah, they're going to want to try and really put their mark on it and have their cars out in front. It's going to make life a lot easier for their team. I was just listening there to some of the drivers just talking over radio, just saying to everybody, look, take it easy, take it calm. It's a long race tonight. We don't want to have too many laps under caution, because it is so easy to get a car around on these circuits. It's a simple thing of if you put your foot down a little bit too soon, and we're talking about a split of a second, you know, half a millimeter too soon on the exit of a corner, the car is going to go around. And of course, that only gets worse when you're in traffic, because although these cars don't have a huge amount of downforce, the small amounts that they do have gets washed away when you get into a corner. All of a sudden, that little bit of front grip you had disappears, and your car goes spinning around.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are going to have to really be on it tonight and really be sort of managing how they're approaching their race.
Yeah, races like this where you really earn your points finishes, it's sometimes a bit of a race of attrition, unfortunately, but that is part of the racing as well, is you have to think with a level head, and you might not have pace to keep up with the rest of the field, but if you can keep a level head and just keep on the sort of lead lap or just a lap down even, sometimes you can sneak your way up and get a very good finish. It is just trying to keep out of trouble and keep a clean race, and that is the key for winning at a track like New Hampshire.
Yeah, 100%. It's going to be a very interesting night of racing, that's for sure.
It will be. As the pace car comes in, we are going to go to green flag racing, and we do, as Josh Mickelmore gets another good start there. He leads away and gets a great jump over his teammates. A little bit of battling midfield, and we've got a car going sideways in the mid-pack. We have one of the DPR cars of Phil Otto. Phil Otto just got caught up there, I think. Got caught by Aiden Schultz, I think, and just turned him around. The car didn't fully rotate. I think Tristan Koch also was involved in that one, as I see it now. But Phil Otto there doing a great job to not fully rotate. He managed to keep the car going in a straight line. So that was a good save there, but unfortunately a little bit too keen on that restart, and it's just that, as we said, it's so easy to happen.
Yeah, it's something that they're going to have to really be aware of, and like we always say, safety cars breed safety cars in this kind of environment.
They do, absolutely, and this style of race circuit as well, because it is a slightly longer short track oval. When you're under the pace car, you do lose heat and temperature in those tyres and brakes, and that is a very, very not fun thing to have on this kind of track. When you go into that first corner and your brakes are just not biting at all, it is such a frustrating feeling. So you've got to also take care of that, because it's so easy to have incidents on these circuits from just lack of temperature in the tyres and brakes.
Absolutely.
So Josh Mickelmore will resume the lead there. Get back in the lead there. It was unfortunate. I feel like if we actually had flag marshals out there, I think we probably would have kept green. It was more iRacing situation on that one, because the drivers did a great job of saving the cars there, especially Phil Otto managed to drift around the corner there and keep it going in the straight line. But unfortunately, just because the car dropped below a certain speed on the track, the caution came out just to stop anyone piling into it.
Yeah, these guys. You got to take that. You got to take your hats off to these guys. They're driving cars that are incredibly overpowered for the amount of downforce that they generate, and they're able to really drive them on the nice edge lap after lap. But unfortunately, sometimes they just go slightly over the limit of the car, and that's all they need.
It just takes a split second it just takes a lapse of concentration for a split second, and it is so much harder than it looks as well out there, especially on these very flat ovals. Because there isn't that banking there to guide the car around, you have to do the work for yourself, and of course you have to brake, which a couple of ovals of course do have them, and a couple of the faster ovals you do need to slightly tap the brake here and there. But on these very flat tracks here, you're going at immense speed into a flat corner, having to brake. These cars don't have the best brakes in the first place, they do like to lock up quite easily. So it is an immense amount of talent to be able to get it around here and get it around fast as well. And these things do have a ridiculous amount of horsepower, as we said. Those big V8 engines in the front are unrestricted on a track like this. It's not like at Talladega or at Daytona where the car is restricted. It loses a couple of hundred horsepower. Here it has all that horsepower to play with, and that torque is immense. And the car will spin around quicker than a spinny thing, really.
Yeah, absolutely, and they look like they're getting ready to restart the race. And I just noticed, so we've got the Mitch Motorsports guys up the front there with, and then we've got Michael Skurlock, but then we've got the three JP Simshed cars behind. So I'm sure they're going to be trying to get together and work together to move up the field.
Absolutely, JP Simshed boys doing a great job of working their way up there. And you've got to say as well, with Michael Skurlock in the Pace Syndicate car, he is really working hard with that team and helping them get towards the front of the circuit. So great job again from Skurlock to get the car up there. Not unexpected from Michael Skurlock. He is a very good hand, a very quick driver, and numerous years of experience underneath his belt as well. So, a very good person to have on your team, but he is definitely helping out those other drivers from Pace Syndicate as we get a car into the side towards the back. It looks like Tristan Koch and Aiden Schultz there just getting into each other. A big tank slapper. A very big tank slapper for Tristan Koch. He's just got up the top there. Just having a watch again. He's lost the rear. Oh, it was Aiden Schultz, sorry. Aiden Schultz just went up the track. It looks like he's just lost a bit of grip, lost the front end, and caught Koch in the rear. So that is going to be two cars that are going to take a long time to get some repairs there. And out of the exit of turns 3 and 4, that is the hardest part because it is so loose on that exit.
Yeah, absolutely, and it almost looks like this is I guess a preview of things to come. Now we've had a couple of safety cars now in the space of a handful of laps, so maybe guys are just feeling a little bit too over ambitious on their restarts.
Very much so. It's a thing of people have to just get into a calm rhythm of a situation. We saw last night in the Wilkesboro race. It took a few laps to get everything running under green, but once people got settled, it was fine. And we're going to see a similar thing here tonight as well, where you just have to get yourself into that rhythm, into that little set speed, into knowing your braking zone and your acceleration zone. Once people start getting more confident in there, once more rubber starts getting on the track, once the car feels a little bit easier to go around, once it's got its tyres up to temperature and its brakes, that's where we'll get some good green flag running. But it's initially getting that working is the hard part, unfortunately. And we are seeing that tonight. Just speaking about some of the drivers as well, we've got a few drivers talking over the radio at the moment, just relaying that information, saying they are having issues through turns 3 and 4, especially through the exit of turn 3. The car just gets very, very loose through the mid-apex and then tightens up on the exit. And that was the issue we saw with the crash on that last pace car, was the car just getting a bit loose, then tightening up and then going like a spear into the car above it. And that, unfortunately, is what we might see a couple of times here tonight. But hopefully everybody can get settled in and start getting some green laps under their belt.
Yeah, well, it's all about getting those first few laps over and out, and getting some warmth and some heat into those tyres, being able to sort of get down to a rhythm with your racing, and then start moving forward from there.
Well, like all forms of racing, it's about getting into that rhythm, and no matter the type of racing it is, I guess the one exception is drag racing, but pretty much for every other form of circuit racing, it is getting into a rhythm. When you can get into that sort of rhythmic sort of pacing for laps, when you know your break point, when you can always drive around without thinking, that's when it feels fine. It's just when you get thrown off, and that's always after, as we say, pace cars, or when you've got fresh tyres on. Pit stops can be problematic as well, because you come out on fresh tyres, you've got used to running a car that's very loose or very, very tight, or just not feeling at its perfect best. You come out on those fresh tyres, all of a sudden your braking point changes by 50 metres or so, and it can catch you out quite quickly, and you can get a bit too overconfident as well in those circumstances. But it is that thing of getting a rhythm underneath you, and once that is there, these drivers will be fine. But it's just getting that initial rhythm under their belt, and then we should be all good to go. So hopefully third time's the charm. We won't see any more from here, and we'll get some good green flag running.
Absolutely, and it seems to be, of course, that the guys at the front are always able to fall into that rhythm a lot faster. You know, they only need a lap or two, and they're in that sort of race rhythm, whereas the guys at the back are struggling to do that because they don't want to lose touch with the front runners, and I guess they're needing to push a little bit harder than they want to.
That's a big part of it. Is you don't want to see your opposition driving off in front of you at a vast rate of knots. But sometimes it's best to do that. It's best to not try and race the people around you as pace car comes in. And once again, we see Mickelmore getting a fantastic restart. No doubt a little bit helped by the fact that it is a Mitch Motorsport front row there, with all three of their cars up the front. But very much so, when you're running a little bit lower down the grid, when you don't have the pace, you do feel like you need to overcompensate, and you do try a little bit harder to keep up the pace. And that's where those accidents come in, because you're pushing a bit harder than you normally would. And we see it time and time again, unfortunately, where you do just have that moment of losing the car a little bit, and it's usually after that sort of initial restart period. But you do push and you do overexert the car a little bit, and that's where problems come in. Sometimes it's better to just try and set your own pace in your head and actually work out what you're going to do before the green flag even drops. Just say, I know I've not got the pace of the leaders, but if I can go around and just keep relatively close, but keep my tyres in check, I'll be able to catch up to them towards the end of a green flag stint. And that can be a very useful strategy to have if you are a little bit lower on speeds. But we are back to racing now, and we've managed to get a lap of green flag running underneath us, which is a good start. Up the front, there is a bit of a battle going on between Danny G and Jason Hartigan. Jason Hartigan taking over the place from Jason Martin as well. Hartigan on a real charge here, going underneath Danny G at the moment.
Yeah, it looks like he's definitely a man on the mission, and it almost looked like the guys from Mitch Motorsport there were just tail gunning for Mickelmore and letting him sort of get away with it a little bit. But now they're starting to catch up, and looks like Hartigan's having a look here on Danny G. He looks like he's putting on a move that's he's going to be able to make that stick, I think.
He is, and Danny G is going to have the problem now of going out a little bit wider. He's going to get slightly better drive off the corner if he can get the foot on the floor properly. But when you start going out wide there, you start going onto the marbles, you start going onto the less grippy tarmac as well, and you start losing a little bit of speed. So Hartigan positioning his car perfectly there to get the pass done. Now he's got to start chasing down Micklemore. Hartigan has had some great pace on these slightly smaller, flatter ovals this year, in a number of different series as well. So he's definitely one to watch. Another one to keep an eye on is his teammate Edward Foster, who's just now coming up behind Danny G and Jason Martin. He tends to have good pace on these style of circuits as well.
Yeah, Hartigan certainly has been the one to watch this year. He's had the pace. Unfortunately, he hasn't had the luck in some of the races. He's already had a win in the Cup Series, and I think he's had a win in a couple of the other series as well. So, yeah, he's looking fairly strong at the moment, and as too is Ed Foster. So we'll see how they go.
Well, definitely a Rookie of the Year contender. Technically, I mean, we did see Jason come in at the tail of last year, but this is his first full season in the Cup, and he's been doing a fantastic job. He has been really the newcomer to watch. He's been on fire. Of course, a lot of experience on track racing for Jason Hartigan, not so much on the oval courses, and he's put it to good use and learnt from his other teammates. As we've got a car going round of Hamish Gallagher, he's managed to catch it, and we've remained green, but Hamish Gallagher having a big moment off turn number 4 there. He's just gone round and got a little bit close to I'm trying to work out who that was now. Devon Stove, I believe it was, and just the side drafts come in and just put Gallagher out a little bit and made him just have that little bit of a spin into the wall. He's managed to keep it going, so all good still, but it's so easy to do. That's the problem here, is when you get a little bit of different air current, a little bit of a different position for the car, it's so easy to lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it looks like Hartigan is coming under attack from Martin, who's slowly being reeling him back now.
The advantage that at the moment that Josh Micklemore has is he's been able to put his car where he wants it every single lap and not take anything out of those tyres. Whereas Jason Hartigan's had to have a bit of a battle and chewed into the tyre life a little bit. He would have got a little bit more heat in those tyres, so he'll be going through a little bit of a cycle at the moment, I imagine. But things will start coming back to him shortly. But Jason Martin is there, and he is hungry to take that spot over from him. Of course, Jason Martin is battling with Hartigan in the chase as well. There's a bit of a point gap between them, but those guys are all up in the chase, and Hartigan is wanting to solidify that position for sure.
Yeah, he'll be certainly wanting to get a good run tonight, and he'll be at this stage. I could just imagine he'll be salivating like a Pavlov's dog, looking at that P1 spot.
Absolutely, yeah. The bell is going off in front of him, and he really wants to get there. But Hartigan has had a fantastic season, as you said. Wins in the Truck Series. I think he's had 2 wins in the Truck Series off the top of my head, which is great going for him. He's been strong in every series he's contended in. As Jason Martin just starts to have a little bit of a look underneath him now. He's giving his eyes out, and he's slowly trying to get there, Martin. He's seen a little bit of a chink in Hartigan's armour, and he's going to try and start to probe and attack him now. See if he can get him a little bit off the pace to now start charging his own teammate. As Hartigan gets a little bit of a wobble onto the straight there, but has kept the position still. Of course, the Mitch Motorsport team as well have been super strong this season in trucks and cup action. They are really the team to beat at the moment. All 3 of their drivers have been doing a fantastic job this year. Danny G had a brilliant start to his season, but now his fellow teammates are starting to come up there as Jason Martin starts looking underneath Hartigan. He can't get it done this time round, but in a couple of laps this could be dangerous for Hartigan.
Yeah, he's definitely letting Hartigan know that he's there. And he is now looking, like you said, he's looking for weaknesses, looking for a spot where he can make a move on Hartigan.
Well, now he has the problem of catching is one thing, but passing is another. It's not an easy track to pass on, despite its width and relative simplicity. Because the car is so tricky on this track, as you see, Danny G just behind him just had a big wiggle off the edge of turn 4 there. But it's very tricky to pass sometimes because the cars are so tight, you really can't run more than one line.
And all the while that this is going on, Josh Mickelmore is absolutely loving this, and he's just eking out that lead ever so slightly.
He is doing a good job up there, so it's allowing Josh Mickelmore to just start moving out and just start getting a bit of extra gapping on his teammates, which is going to be quite useful for him, as he can just get a bit of breathing room here. He doesn't have to worry so much. The big thing on Hartigan at the moment, of course, is in his wing mirror, and well, in his rear view mirror, sorry. He's going to have a big purple car there, and that's one of the most intimidating thing about Jason Martin is that purple car colouring. Is it's a car that's easy to spot, and you always know when it's in your mirrors.
Yeah, and there you go. You can see Jason Hartigan from Jason Hartigan's car looking back into Martin's car. And Martin is just looking ever so threatening coming up, and I think you might have hit the nail right on the head. That original little fight that Hartigan had there to get the second place has probably hurt his tyres a little bit.
And with the amount of pace cars we had, the sort of cycles through the heat cycles that the tyres go through, of course, they don't tend to like going through those cycles constantly of getting a bit hot, bit cold, bit hot, bit cold. So that can sometimes make them a little bit tricky on those restarts. And then, of course, if you put a lot into them, if you get a big slide or something like that, that can affect your pace for the rest of a stint sometimes. You're seeing Danny G drop back now towards Foster. And I can imagine some of that was just due to that big tail slide he had going through turn 4. Just getting a bit too much heat in that rear tyre. And that carries through for about a lap and a half on the car. Makes it harder to get through those corners for that amount of time. And you do just drop back. You can see now that the two Jasons are taking a slightly higher line as the tyres are starting to wear out. They're going to start going a little bit higher up the track, not turning as much on the wheel to try and eke out a little bit of extra tyre life.
And you can see going a little bit further back there, Michael Skurlock on the back of JCW, absolutely menacing him as well.
Yeah, Skurlock got a bit of a bad restart on that last caution and did drop back to 7th position. But he's not in a bad position overall. But being back there means, you know, you've got to watch out a little bit, but you can relax a little bit. You don't have to push quite as hard sometimes. And you can just ease the car off a little bit and start to look at slightly longer runs.
Well, the one thing we know about Skurlock is he's not afraid to make his move from way down in the mid-pack or even towards the back of the field.
That's it. We've seen it time and time again, and we saw it last week out at Kentucky where he had an unfortunate incident early on in the race, but managed to get up battling for the lead of the race during that amazing slipstream fight we had. But he does tend to do that very well. He's very good at conserving the car through traffic and just getting it back up into a race-winning position. He tends to be quite good at sort of getting the car a little bit up there in pace. Just the battle for second place now is starting to ease off a little bit for Hartigan as Martin's dropping back a little bit. Just that time of running so close to Hartigan will have again caused slight heating issues for Martin, and he might just need to drop off a little bit just to let the car settle down before going for his second attack now. But he's starting to struggle a little bit. He's starting to get a little bit of understeer through the corners, I've noticed, having to correct it mid-corner, and that's costing him a lot of time. As we come up to a couple of the lapped cars now, we're starting to get through into the tail end of the drivers now, so lapped cars can start coming into effect too. If you catch a lapped car at the wrong point in the corner, it can sometimes throw you off quite a bit on these tracks.
And that seemed to really play into Hardigan's favour here. Oh, looked like he got a bit taily coming through that corner there. But he's managed to catch it. Any predictions, Carl, as to when they might be coming in for tyres?
Well, I would say they will try and go as long as possible, as Hartigan has a bit of a moment there. Again, he's just losing a little bit of pace. The actual car in front of him, the lapped car, is actually getting out in front of Hartigan through the corners. And I'd say that's actually more so to do with the fact that he's come in for some fresh boots. So he's actually on some fresh rubber, Aiden Schultz. So, and he's gone round. Schultz has gone round. That's going to bring out the pace car, possibly. We'll see how that goes. Will he get back to the pits without the caution coming out? We might be lucky here. We might have saved from a caution, but Jason Hardigan very lucky to miss that one. Schultz just having much better tyres, but it caught him out in the end. He had a bit too much confidence as he started battling it with the leaders there, and he's gone around. But that's cost Hartigan a lot of time and made him fall back towards the grasp of Jason Martin. So it's given Josh Micklemore a good extra second of lead, but it has cost Hartigan a fair bit of time.
Yeah, not quite a brown pants moment there for Hardigan, but not far off it. And yeah, like you said, that's brought Jason Martin right back into the fray to attack, although Hardigan looks like he's put a little bit of a gap on him again.
Yeah, he's got a little bit of a gap on him. I think Hardigan's got slightly fresher tyres. I think he's got a little bit more grip underneath him at the moment, just mid-apex, and that's helping him just keep in front of Jason Martin. But Josh Micklemore has got much better grip through the through the whole field, really. He's not having a problem.
No, not at all. It seems that Martin is getting much better corner entry than Hardigan, but Hardigan is certainly getting a far better exit and is able to sort of stretch that gap out again, so it keeps ebbing and flowing.
Yes, well, that time out, we can actually see Jason Martin, the rear just going on him. You can see that the rear of the car is starting to lose it, and that's helping him with corner entry. But then he's losing out on exit as he loses some of that traction, can't get the power down, and that's meaning that Hartigan's able to get much more speed out of the corner. At the moment, it's Hartigan going slow in, fast out of the corner, Jason Martin going fast into the corner, but slow out. So it sort of gives the illusion that Jason Martin has got a bit more pace, so to say, just because it looks like he's catching more, but it ends up losing your time in the overall generally.
Absolutely, and there was a classic example before as he was coming around that last turn. The back end of his car just stepped out slightly, and that would have certainly cost him on corner exit.
And that seems to be the trouble at the moment he's having. It's just Jason Hartigan just taking a little bit more of a turn in. He's taking a slightly deeper approach, but that's giving him his chance to put on the power a little bit earlier, and that's helping him immensely. But it's not going to help him catch Josh Micklemore at the moment, because Josh Micklemore has now got a 2-second lead over these two. So absolutely pulling away at the moment for Josh Micklemore, just giving a dominating pace out there.
Absolutely, yeah. Josh Micklemore is certainly checked out, and I would have to say that the strategy for these guys would be to shadow Micklemore if he comes in for tyres. They'd want to be following him.
There is that sort of thought to be had, but the undercut is huge here. You will gain a lot of time advantage, as Jason Martin just loses a lot of time there through the mid corner. He might even get caught up to by his teammate. Just behind them, actually, there's a good battle going on between Skurlock and Joshua Carroll Walden, with Ayrton Smith as well catching it up in the action. Another newcomer to the series, Ayrton Smith, who's been doing a great job this season. Some good finishes for him. So another one of those drivers that's been having a great rookie year. And it's nice to see some rookies really dicing it up in the upper pack parts of the field.
Yeah, absolutely. Not letting these old timers have their own way. Well, when I say old timers, they're not really old timers. They're just seasoned cup car racers in this series.
seasoned veterans, I think is the politically correct term, isn't it?
What did I say before? Dinosaur? But that was only referring to Ed Foster.
That's it. Of course, Foster, the dinosaur of the pack. But he's not going extinct yet. He's still sitting there in 5th place and still got some good pace underneath him. He's not too close to Danny G at the moment, but he's currently saving those tyres a bit. If we actually jump to Foster, you'll be able to see that he's not really pushing the car as much as some of the other people, but he's just keeping the car smooth and tight on the track. And I'd say he's just saving his tyres to try and go for a bit longer in this race. You were saying before about pit strategy, and I'd expect to see some drivers coming in anywhere from now on for that first pit stop. This is the time where you might start considering coming in for a 2-stop strategy. A few drivers might try for the 1-stop out here, depends how they're going for those tyres. But if you do come in now, you're going to gain a lot of time over those leaders if they do stay out there for a bit longer.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and like you said, I get the impression that Ed's running a different strategy. He's conserving a little bit. He's waiting for the other cars to for their tyres to start going off a little bit more, so they can start coming to him and he can start pushing a little bit.
He's very much running his own race at the moment. Up the front, we've got Jason Hartigan. He is slowly starting to catch on Micklemore now as they're coming through a little bit more of the field now. Hartigan did take a couple attempts out of Micklemore's time there, but the big loser in time is Jason Martin, who's dropped down to 3.5 seconds off the leader's pace. So he's dropped almost a second off of Hartigan's pace as well. So a big bit of lead there for Hartigan. It shows that those tyres, although he was struggling a little bit earlier in the stint, they've come back good to him now. And this is what Foster might be looking at as well. And you can see Skurlock as well as having that advantage. He dropped down the field a little bit earlier on. Looked like he was losing pace, but now he's back on it. He's catching up to Foster, and there's going to be a good battle on the track between those two shortly.
Yeah, he's reeling Foster in lap after lap. I guess if Foster's going to do anything, now would probably be the time to do it.
Yeah, he might have to look at starting to press that go button now and just start getting a little bit more pace in the car if he can squeeze it out of there. Just behind them as well, Ayrton Smith as well has managed to get past Joshua Carroll-Walden, so good move from Ayrton Smith up into 7th place now. Joshua Carroll-Walden dropping down to 8th. Hamish Gallagher is having a great recovery from that earlier crash he had. Well, earlier smash. It wasn't really a big crash, but he was sideways for a few moments and did do a bit of damage to the car. He's managed to work his way up to 9th place after starting 21st in the race, and we know that Hamish is very, very good on those tyres.
Yeah, he seems to be able to get those few laps more out of those tyres and get the car working for him, although he just had a little moment there going through that turn.
It's not been an easy night for him, and the damage on that car is not going to be helping him out for sure. He would have been happier without that damage. Just behind him is another newcomer to the season, and that's Bradley Allison, of course, and he's up there in 10th position. Again, a solid top 10 running from him, with Norman Clark just sitting behind him in 11th. Bradley Allison has had a great year so far, been very strong pace-wise, and has been showing a great amount of speed and, well, consistency as well. So some good racing from him as well again tonight, and good to see him working his way up in that top 10 position again.
Yep, absolutely, and now we're seeing Danny G all over the back of Martin's car, so teammate on teammate now. Maybe once again Danny sort of helped conserve his tyres a little bit more, or Martin just had to use his tyres trying to do something with Hartigan.
And this is the moment where Foster and Skurlock are going to be quite happy, and you can see Martin just getting up out the way of Danny G there. Mitch Motorsport, they race hard with each other. There's no team orders in that team. They might be teammates, but they race each other well. But looks like Jason Martin just let Danny G through there because he is struggling for pace. Didn't look like it was much of a hard-fought battle. But you can see behind them that Foster and Skurlock are catching at a vast rate of knots now. And this is the moment that they were looking for, I imagine. Just keeping those tyres a little bit better in their condition to try and jump on the drivers as their tyres start to fall off.
Yep, absolutely. And and smart racing really by Martin. He knew that he couldn't keep Danny G behind him. Rather than hold them both up, he opened the door, let him go, and now he could just slot behind him and try to stay with him. Use maybe Danny G's draft.
Well, that's it. It's as I was talking about earlier, it's almost racing to your own pace on these kind of circuits. If you try and race other people around you, you can start to cause yourself issues. If you race to your own pace, like we're seeing Jason Martin doing now, he's not really pushing the car too hard. He's able to get back on the pace a bit behind Danny G, but he's not pushing the car as hard as he'd have to if he was racing Danny G. So he's not losing as much time, and he's able to keep his tyres a little bit better condition. But you can see the JP Simshed car of Foster now, and the Pace Syndicate car of Skurlock really catching up. Ayrton Smith as well is holding on to this really well in the fast lane esports car. So all of those drivers have done a great job of holding those positions and keeping their tyres in a relatively good state to be able to jump on the cars that are struggling.
100%. And it kind of looks to me as though Skurlock doesn't really want to get around Foster at this stage. He's just going to use Foster as a shield to help him plough his way through the field.
Well, that's one of the other things as well, is sometimes you might be looking at a bit of the unseen sort of nodding of drivers there, of we're not going to race each other too hard. Oh, and Ayrton Smith just going into the side of Raymond Yeager there. They do manage to keep it. Ayrton Smith doing a great job to keep that car straight. Good save as well by Yeager. He just caught him going through turn 3 there, I believe it was. The car just went out on him. He went too far underneath. Just caught Yeager in the side. Yeager's gone up into the wall, but they did manage to keep the cars going. So no caution there, but an easy mistake to make on a track like this as you pass some lapped cars. And that's precisely the thing I was talking about, is when you get underneath the car sometimes loses a little bit of aero, you get a bit of aero wash, and then all of a sudden it will do something you've not had it done for many laps, and it will catch you unaware.
Which is obviously much of what would have happened just before.
Exactly, that looks like a prime example of the car getting a little bit light on the front and catching Ayrton Smith a little bit unaware there. And of course that's where sometimes a bit of... Oh, and we've got a car off in the background.
Lachlan looks like it.
Lachlan gone around, but we've remained green for the time being. I'm touching wood right now just to make sure.
Just having a look at the replay here, Carl. See what's happened.
Yeah, so it looks like he's going through turns number 2, and the back end has just stepped out, and then he's had a tank slapper across the grass. Not a big crash, no impact there or any problems to the car, just a bit of a tank slapper there. It's exactly the thing I was talking about earlier, and that's where the tyres just start to drop off in this part of the race, and you get those tank slappers hitting. It would probably be a good idea for Lachlan to come in for some tyres now, and sort of get back in the race that way.
Yeah, once you've had a spin like that, I'm sure the tyres aren't going to be very happy. So it would be a good idea for him to come in and put on a fresh set of rubber and get going again.
Yeah, they do tend to moan and whine a bit when they get that sort of heat going through them, and you start losing that rear grip as well. Of course, you've got all the crud from the grass and the mud on the tyres as well, and that never helps you out. But when those tyres are spinning, they just get a little bit extra hot, and then it takes a few laps for them to cool down. Being that he's lost quite a bit of time, he's still on the lead lap, mind you, but being that time lost, it might be an idea to come into the pit lane now to get those fresh tyres on and see if he can make up some positions. But I feel like everybody's just sticking out there as long as they can to try and make this into a one-stop race.
Yeah, it looks exactly like that. I think they're waiting for the first person to blink. It's either going to be a safety car or first car in for tyres out of the lead bunch. I think we're going to see the rest of them follow.
Yeah, it will be a lot of time gained if somebody can get in there without anybody noticing, especially if they're not that far off pace-wise. There's only about 30 seconds from 16th to 1st at the moment, because they're just getting to those cars to start lapping them. But it could be a good idea if you're running in the sort of 10th, 11th place to look at coming into the pit lane. You might be coming a little bit early, But the amount of pace you'll gain from that could be the difference between finishing in the lower end of the top 10 towards the higher end of the top 10. It could really pay off for some drivers.
100%. And talk about drivers on the charge. You can see Ed Foster here is catching up to Martin 1 to 2 tenths of a second every lap. That's definitely going to count for him.
Yeah, and that's that sort of leaving the car a little bit softer, not putting as much pressure on there.
And look, sorry, Carl, looks like we've had our first car blink. JCW is in the pits.
And he was in that sort of position that I was saying is a good one to go in, that sort of P9 he was in when he came into the pit lane, so he's going to come in for that first stop, and he's going to be able to gain some serious time. So if nobody comes in the next 2 to 3 laps, he'll be able to gain some good positions as long as we don't get a caution, and this is the problem. Now, for people like Foster, because he's waited that bit longer, and Skurlock as well, they want this race to go green for a nice long time, because that's going to only help them out. At the moment, Josh Micklemore's not going to have too much issue. He's got a nice big gap of 3.5 seconds over Jason Hartigan. But for Joshua Carroll-Walden, he's going to want this race to remain green for a good 10 to 15 laps now, to get him some good positions up, while everybody else is out there struggling on those tyres. Of course, the problem for him will come is later in the race, is he's going to probably have to stop one more time just to get some tyres to get him to the end of the race, of course, because we're only on lap 71 now, so we're almost getting towards that half distance mark. So he might be able to go a bit longer, as I believe Lachlan's come in as well.
Yeah, well, as you were saying, it was probably prudent of him to come in maybe even a lap or two earlier after he'd had that spin.
Of course, one of the other things that we have to remember as well is because of those early caution laps, they weren't putting too much stress in the tyres. So they have managed to get a bit more life out of them in this stint. But if it remains green to the end here, people are going to be really struggling towards the end if they go too early for tyres. As we see one of the DPR cars, I think of Stephen Williams just getting up into the wall, just losing traction through the mid-corner and just nibbling on the wall a little bit. As he's gone through the corner. It's hard now for the end of the race. You've got to sort of work your way towards the end of the race now.
Yeah, and I think we're seeing the same sort of scenario that we saw with Hartigan and Martin previously, whereas I know, look,
like Foster's coming in. Yeah, Foster's coming into the pits. I've noticed quite a few of the JP Simshed cars have come in because Norman Clark has also stopped. So it looks like pretty much all the JP Simshed cars other than Jason Harkin have come into the pit lane now and changed those tyres.
So that's going to be an interesting strategy call for them.
Yeah, it's going to be it'll be interesting to see how long everybody else stays out now, because of course they're going to have slightly... Oh, Michael Skurlock getting a big moment through the middle of the apex as I believe Joshua Carroll-Walden just getting past him, although he's lapped down. Michael Skurlock just run up towards the barrier there, just losing traction mid-corner. Of course, the issue you have now towards the end of the race is those people that stay out longer are going to have better tyres at the end of the race, because we've still got half of the race to go now. So if you can stay out a bit longer, you'll have better tyres towards the end of the race than at the start of the race. Absolutely,
and we can see JCW's last lap was a 30.6 as opposed to a 32 flat for Micklemore and Hartigan.
Yeah, and that's that fresh tyre coming into play. Now we're seeing a fair few other cars just looking at those stops now. Stephen Williams, I believe, has... maybe not actually. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong car. But a couple of cars have come in. Pretty much the JP Simshed cars. Most importantly, I think, is Edward Foster, who's managed to get out in front of the leader. So he's not showing a lap down on my screen anymore. So he's managed to get back onto the lead of the lap. So that's going to help him out immensely if a pace car comes out.
Absolutely, and he is just eating up the traffic at the moment.
Absolutely flying out there. He's just at a 30.6, 2 seconds faster than our leader there. So you can see those fresh tyres are starting to pay off. Of course, the thing you've got to do now is be a little bit patient and not take too much out of those tyres, because they do have to last you a long time. So you don't want to eat too much of them and end up sort of wearing them away. As Foster comes up now on Jason Hartigan. Sorry, he's not back on the lead lap just yet, but it won't be too long. You can see right here the traction he gets off the corner. He's just going to fly past Jason Hartigan, and he'll be the first car to really catch up to Josh Micklemore tonight, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry.
Josh has had pretty much a perfect race out there at the moment. He's had a very lonely one out there at the front. Not really seen many people for a fair few laps now.
No, well, we haven't paid much attention to Josh. He's been having it really his own way this entire race up until now. So,
sorry, Jason Hartigan's just coming into the pit lane now, so he is stopping now. So this might be the moment where the other leaders are going to start looking about it and thinking about it.
Certainly, you would think that with Jason's position on track, the other leaders, the other race leaders, would be certainly thinking long and hard about coming in for their tyres now. But we do know that the Mitch guys can sort of get some decent life out of their tyres usually.
Yeah, they do have a very good program. They tend to work very well on their tyres. Just the first person to pit in that sort of stint was Joshua Carroll-Walden, of course, and he has jumped Edward Foster. So that's the amount of time you gain on those fresh tyres. You can see he's managed to leapfrog Foster, who he was a fair few cars behind at the start of that pit strategy. Foster was running up there in 5th. Joshua Carroll-Walden was running in 9th place. And he's managed to jump Edward Foster. So a huge leap over him. And that really does help out for those... that helps you understand how much those tyres do help it out. So we see Joshua Carroll-Walden going underneath Josh Micklemore now, and Foster's going to come down as well. Is Micklemore going to come into the pits this time round? No, it doesn't look like it.
I think even if he wanted to, it probably was going to be a little bit difficult for him with JCW coming down on his inside like that.
Yeah, having that car underneath him would not have helped out. It would have made things a bit trickier. Hamish Gallagher pitting now as well. It's sort of, we've still got a fair few cars out there. Michael Skurlock is staying out there, as well as Ayrton Smith. So those guys are staying out there a bit longer. Come the end of this this little cycle, though, when these guys come into pit, these guys are going to be quite a few positions down from where they started out when they when they left the track. They're going to lose a fair few positions from these cars that are taking the undercut right now.
Yes, this is the whole strategy game here playing out. How is it going to wind out for them? And it looks like, just going back to Jason Hartigan, it looks like he's actually he can actually see Josh Micklemore in front of him. So this is going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, he's finally got some tyres where he can catch Micklemore.
Just done a 30.4.
Yeah, he's catching at a vast rate of knots. Hartigan is the fastest car out on track at the moment, and he's on some very fresh tyres as well. His tyres are 5 laps fresher than that of Edward Foster, 15 laps fresher than that of Joshua Carroll-Walden. So he is looking good at the moment. Depending on how this race goes now, could be a good little strategy call for him, though.
Yeah, well, we're going to find out. He's catching up to these guys very, very quickly, and I'm sure Josh Micklemore knows that as well. So it'll be interesting to see if he presses the button and goes in. But once again, he's not going to be able to because he's got a car underneath him.
Yeah, he's sort of a little bit stuck out there, but in all honesty, I don't think he's going to be looking at doing it. I think the Mitch Motorsport boys are just going to sit out there, along with Michael Skurlock, who is catching on Jason Martin at the moment as well.
Yeah.
Skurlock is much closer to Martin than we've seen before. Those guys are going to just stick out there just in case there's a leg caution. See how they go. Of course, if a caution comes out now, you'll see a lot of those drivers that pitted coming in again to get some fresher tyres on, because they'll lose so many positions from the fact that those tyres are at least 10 to 15 laps old now.
100%. And these guys from Mitch Motorsport, they don't just throw a coin up in the air and go, what are we going to do? They have a plan as to what they're going to do. They've got a strategy, and they're probably going to stick with that strategy.
Yeah, they have some good strategies. And
although this now looks like Micklemore is in for tyres.
Micklemore coming in for tyres. Are we going to see all three of the cars come in? We're seeing Danny G come in.
And Jason Martin staying out.
Yep, Jason Martin, Michael Skurlock, and Ayrton Smith staying out. So those guys are staying out. Stephen Williams, saw, I think, Phil Otto coming in for tyres as well there. So this is going to be the big one now. How long does Jason Martin and Michael Skurlock stay out? That's the big question.
Well, they're dropping almost 2 seconds a lap to the cars that have changed their tyres. But I guess they've got gap as well.
They've got a bit of time in hand at the moment, and you can just see that coming out the pit lane is Danny G at the moment, coming out just behind his teammate. Josh Micklemore came out a lot further in front of his teammate of Jason Martin. Micklemore just had such a decent gap there. He came out just behind, he's just got past.
And here we go.
So yeah, now the race begins in chasing and racing for places. As Jason Martin has come in, Skurlock has stayed out for one more lap. Ayrton Smith as well sticking out there as well. So how much longer are these guys going to go? Are they going to risk it for another couple of laps just in case of a late caution? Or are they going to come in and not lose up too much time? Because they have got a bit of a gap. They've got a gap of 15 seconds to Edward Foster. But they are they're hemorrhaging time at the moment. So, just out on the battle between Jason Hartigan and Josh Micklemore. Currently, Hartigan has the distance of one of the straights over Josh Micklemore. So, he gained a good bit of time there. He did gain a nice bit of time there and has got a good position. But, of course, his tyres are much older now. Some 10 laps older than that of Josh Micklemore. And Skurlock's come in. Ayrton Smith has stayed out, and that's going to mean he's going to get to lead a lap and get a bonus point.
And I wouldn't be surprised if that's what he was banking on, trying to get that bonus points, get as many points as you can.
It's always nice to say that you led a race as well. It's a nice feeling to lead a couple of laps. Makes you feel kind of good.
That warm and fuzzy feeling.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to see Ayrton Smith going for another lap. He's staying out there quite long, actually, Smith. So he's really pushing the car to its limits on those tyres. They must be absolutely howling underneath him. But Edward Foster is now in the effective lead of the race, as soon as Ayrton Smith comes to pit, of course. Edward Foster getting past Joshua Carroll-Walton. Foster running a much better pace at the moment, one has to say. At the moment, it's not working out too well for Hartigan, who's having to battle through a little bit of lap traffic. So he's not gaining as much time as he would have liked at the moment. So Foster and JCW did get out in a good position. Ayrton Smith has pitted, so Foster is now effectively leader of this race.
And with his pace and being able to conserve those tyres, that's put Foster in really in the box seat. However, the cars behind him will have fresher tyres, and I'm sure they're going to be coming up fast.
yeah, they will have a big speed advantage over him. Just in clean air, Josh Micklemore is a big winner because he's come out in a relatively good spot of clean air. He just set a 30.187. Oh, sorry, a 30.4, sorry, on that last lap. Edward Foster was a 31.35, so almost a second faster than Foster on that last lap for Josh Micklemore.
That's gonna make a big difference, and I'm sure these guys right now will be praying for a safety car in the next 5 or 6 laps.
A pace car could really help these guys. If a safety car comes out right now, it's going to help those guys that jumped ahead in those pit stops. People like Hamish Gallagher, who's currently sitting ahead of Jason Martin, for instance. Michael Skurlock, he dropped down to 8th position in that one, but he's, remember, on very fresh tyres. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes from that one.
And it looks almost, no, Lachlan's opened the steering for him. I was about to say it almost looked like Lachlan was holding Edward up a bit, but he's opened the steering and let him go.
Let him sail past there and get through. So he's going to just come storming up there now. Matt Hunter into the pit lane as well for his second stop of the night. So Matt Hunter taking 2 stops, but that was from an earlier incident for Matt Hunter. So he pitted very early on for damage, so it wasn't a 2-stop strategy, but a bit of a longer strategy for him. So he's going to finally get those fresh tyres on. Josh Micklemore now is absolutely flying up onto the back, and the
yellow flag.
We've got a caution. We've got a caution as one of the DPR cars, I believe, has gone around. I think it might have been
Darren Blunfield.
Darren Blunfield. Sorry,
Blunfield,
not
sorry.
DPR. I saw a white car, and it was there was a what was it, about 65% chance of it being a DPR car, and I got it wrong, of course, but Brumfield has gone around, big impact into the wall, and that's going to be a lot of damage on that car. That might be the end of his night, possibly. He'll have to come in for some repairs on that for sure. But we're going to see a whole slew of cars coming into pit lane now to get those fresh tyres on. And this is going to be a great help for people like Foster, Carol Walden, Hartigan, Hamish Gallagher, Norman Clark. It's really going to help their races come alive.
And here they come.
You don't really have any other choice now, because the only person that may stay out and throw a roll the dice, I guess, is Michael Skurlock, being that his tyres are only about 7 laps old, and he has indeed, he's stayed out.
Martin and Skurlock have both stayed out.
So those two did have some fresh tyres. Now, Martin's tyres are about 10 laps old. Skurlock and, of course, Ayrton Smith as well will have stayed out too. Those guys have some very fresh tyres. So Ayrton Smith is the box seat, you'd have to say, for those tyres being fresh.
100%. What would you, if you had to call strategy from here on in for the Fosters, Micklemores, Hardigans, and so forth? What do you think your play would be?
Pitting. It's an easy answer on that one. Pitting is the big one. In all honesty, I'm surprised to see Jason Martin stay out there. He is going to struggle on that restart. Even somebody like Michael Skurlock is going to have trouble. Ayrton Smith might be able to get away with it a little bit, but those guys are going to lose places quite quickly. It makes a huge amount of difference, those tyres being 10 laps younger. You wouldn't think it, but it does make a difference. So pitting is exactly the option I would have gone for, and would have made that call. But if I was in somebody like, if I was in Ayrton Smith's position, for instance, I would have stayed out. So it's a bit 50-50 on Jason Martin, but for Michael Skurlock and Ayrton Smith, I probably would have stayed out and seen how it's gone. Obviously, Jason Martin kind of had his hand forced in that one, because it was not an ideal position to be in, because he did come in a lot later than everybody else. It really didn't help him out too much when those cars did come in.
And given the cars behind them are going to have fresher tyres, do you think that their play would be to maybe just stay with these guys, not push them too hard, wait until their tyres drop off and then make their move?
Your ideal situation here is to try and, damage limitation is the big thing now. Is you just try and go around, you try and keep pace, not lose too much pace. You're going to drop down to probably about 7th or 8th. And then the tyres are going to start to plateau. So you might drop down a few positions on the restart, but those tyres will start to plateau over the next, say, 10 laps or so. And the difference won't be as big. And that's where you've got to start fighting back. Now, of course, your tyres have had some heat in them as well. So you've got this bit of a start advantage on those tyres. But your main thing is just going to be getting around there, keeping the car out of trouble, and fighting back a little bit later in the race. You're probably not going to win it from here on those older tyres, but you can get yourself a good top 10 finish. So you've got to start thinking about that rather than the win.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be this is going to be an interesting restart.
Absolutely, and the trouble is now, of course, is you've got cars on very different tyre sets. I'm going to bring up the race from last night again, actually, because we had a similar situation towards the end of the race at North Wilkesboro. I was running a very long race pace and only had done 2 stops, whereas the rest of the field had done 4 to 6 stops. I just stayed out there and just kept out of trouble. And a similar thing happened, is everybody's pace started to even out after about 10 to 15 laps, and I wasn't really losing much time. So I sort of managed to keep position and keep myself within the top 10 of the field by just keeping out there on those slightly older tyres. I lost a lot of time over the first couple of laps, but once you got to around the 10-15 lap mark, the cars weren't really gaining enough time to make a big difference. So you started to not really see much of a difference there. So there is that kind of situation that's happening now, where you're going to have that sort of a little bit of a plateau, but you've got to wait for that to happen. As the pace car comes in, Jason Martin holds it back, and he drops it now. He gets a relatively good restart there, and he's going to need to get that, because he's going to start losing time on the exit of corners. People are going to have a better drive off the corner. Of course, in this situation where people are on different tyre strategies, you could see a big incident at the front. So you've got to be careful not to wreck it at the front, because it's very easy to do. As you see, Edward Foster getting past Ayrton Smith right there. Foster pushing ahead now into 3rd position. And now he's going to start hunting down Skurlock and Martin. Smith, though, his tyres aren't that much older, but you can see the difference on the exit there. Edward Foster just launching away from him. Jason Hartigan as well, just coming up underneath him. Just much easier time of getting closer to that car on the exit of the corner. And mid-corner too. Oh, and Jason
Hartigan's off.
Jason Hartigan's gone round. And it looks like it was a tap between him and Ayrton Smith there. Ayrton Smith lost the front end of the car, caught Hartigan, and exactly what I was saying can happen here when you're on different tyre strategies has happened, unfortunately, for Hartigan there, because yeah, so it looks like Ayrton Smith there he's lost the front end, he's snatched the brake a little bit and just gone down into Hartigan, unfortunately. And he's managed to catch the car quite well, but unfortunately going into the side of Hartigan, that's going to really hamper his race. And a big shame for Jason Hartigan there, who, again, luck has not gone his way.
Yeah, absolutely. Just really gutted for Jason on that one. He had plenty of pace in hand, and really, nothing against Ayrton. That the car just broke away from him.
Well, the big thing I'd say there is inexperience as well for Ayrton Smith. Not in a bad way, of course. He did everything he could to not cause that incident. Unfortunately, the car broke away from him. He lost it. He managed to catch it. He managed to keep it going, and it wasn't a big crash. But unfortunately, Jason Hartigan was the victim in that one. But it is one of those things of experience, and it takes experience to learn how to drive these cars on a restart on those worn tyres, because again, it can be very hard. It's not easy to drive these vehicles. And it looked like he just caught his brake there. As I said, I think he locked up the front left on that one, and it just caught him caught him by surprise, which is a real shame. But he's still up there, and he's still able to fight on. He's only in 4th position still, So he's able to fight on.
Yeah, it's certainly not over for him. Unfortunately, though, for Jason, that's put him right back into 13th. He's definitely going to have his hands full.
He is, but he has pitted for brand new tyres, so he's coming for fresh tyres now. And he's in a position where Jason Martin and Ed Smith and everybody was on that restart. Everybody else is on those slightly used tyres. He's on those beautiful fresh tyres. So now he's got to work for it. He might be able to salvage something out of this night still. It's not over for him by a long shot.
Absolutely. And I think this time around for Foster, he's going to be on the inside line, so I would say that's going to be the preferred line for him.
Yes, he's going to be on that inside line. He's on much younger tyres than the people ahead of him. Of course, Jason Martin is in the prime position, but he's going to be able to get a good drive through those corners. So we might see Foster taking the lead on the end of this lap. You've also got to watch out for Joshua Carroll-Walden, who'll be... Josh Micklemore, who'll be starting behind Foster as well. So he's going to push quite hard as well, I imagine.
I'd say for sure, yeah.
So we're up for a juicy finish to this race as we've got 41 laps remaining tonight. We're going to be up for a juicy one towards the end here because these guys are going to be racing hard. Big thing now is how much can Hartigan gain back. He's down there in 13th position. He's got the freshest tyres out of everybody. He could be in a good position to actually gain back those positions and get within a top 10 finish at least, if not a top 5.
Yeah, it will be very interesting to see what he does. We know he's got plenty of pace. Like you said, he's got those fresh tyres, so let's see what he does with it.
Yes, and all of the people out there that I've raced against, Jason Hartigan is one of the fastest drivers I've raced against when he's come in for fresh tyres and something bad's happened. He tends to come back very, very fast. He comes back with the bit between his teeth, and his pace is jaw-dropping at times. So expect Hartigan to come back at us. He's just got to make it through the field, and that's the hard part now, of course, because if there's an accident in front of him, that can be a race over for him. So he's got to try and work his way through the field and not get caught up in any incidents. But if he can do that, he could quite easily get back to the front of the field and start dicing for top positions again. As pace car is going to be coming in this time round, as we come off the back straight here, we're going to go into turn 3 and 4, and Jason Martin's going to have that launch away again. But expect to see Edward Foster and Josh Micklemore have a better bit of a restart here. Going to be an intense start here as the pace car comes in. Jason Martin's going to drop the loud pedal. Now he goes away, gets a good launch, but Foster's managed to keep up pace with him. Foster's going to try and get underneath now. He's going to want to try and get past Michael Skurlock and try and get ahead of Josh Micklemore. He's going to want to try and keep Micklemore behind him because he knows how fast he is tonight. As Foster gets a little bit of oversteer going through the corner there, he keeps the car well. He's going to slot in behind Skurlock now. Micklemore goes up the high side. That might have been a little bit of a mistake. He's lost a little bit of time. He falls back a little bit. And Micklemore's lost the car a bit. Micklemore's dropped back. He's going to drop back past the 09. He's dropped back past Norman Clark, sorry. He's almost back there with Jason Hartigan now. A big moment there for Josh Micklemore. The car just snapped on him. And he just lost it there under acceleration.
Falls down into 9th place.
He has. And... Aiden Schultz has just gone off, but luckily I think we're going to stay green. So that's the main thing. Norman Clark getting a good run underneath Josh Micklemore right there. Micklemore's got the high line, but Hamish Gallagher's got in front. Ayrton Smith's down in front as well. Now, Ed Foster just has to work on Skurlock and Martin and get underneath them, get in front of them and start controlling this race.
Easier said than done, but Ed does have the fresher tyres. He's going to be looking to try to do that as quickly as he can, I guess.
He is going to try his best for that one. Ayrton Smith going very high, losing the car a bit. He lost a lot of traction there. He's dropping back a bit of a vast rate of knots. He's dropped back to 9th position, falling into the grips of Jason Hartigan now, actually. Josh Micklemore is now coming underneath Hamish Gallagher. He's trying to get underneath him for that fight. There are battles all the way down the field at the moment. It's a bit hard to know where to look.
And he's made that move easily.
He's made that one stick, Micklemore. He's got ahead of Gallagher. Now he's got to get past Joshua Carroll-Walden and get ahead of him. As we see Ayrton Smith and Norman Clark starting to get into a bit of a battle. You can see Ayrton Smith's tyres are just struggling now as he's going through the corners. He's having a bit of trouble just getting the power down and struggling in that respect. At the moment, Jason Martin is doing a fantastic job in the lead on those slightly used tyres, getting the power down. He's managing to get a bit of a gap, and he's being helped out a lot, you could say, by Michael Skurlock.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just wondering once again if Ed's just conserving his tyres a little bit here and waiting to make a run closer to the end of the race.
He might be looking at it as Stephen Williams gets a big tank slapper towards the back of the field and lets Jason Hartigan get past him. Jason Hartigan on a charge at the moment. He's worked his way up into P9 now. He's charging up the field. Is Foster just saving it a little bit, not pushing too hard, letting these guys run a bit of a hair race as Jason Martin starts to lose the back of that car now. The rear tyres are starting to drop off as he's starting to push that car as hard as he can to try and keep pace. This can be the moments where you over-push the car, where you overdrive the car, and you use those tyres up much quicker than you need to, and then you start to drop off pace from that.
And you can see that back end of the car just step out slightly on Jason Martin's car. Ed Foster seems to be shadowing Michael Skurlock. Their times are almost identical. It's going to be very, very interesting, the remaining laps of this race, that's for sure.
Well, we saw on that first long green stint that Jason Martin had good pace at the beginning of the stint, but then he dropped off quite a lot towards the end of it. We've got 32 laps to go now. Is the same thing going to happen for him? Is he going to start dropping pace because of those tyres just dropping out? Because he's a little bit harder on those tyres through the mid-corner. Because he's definitely got some good entry speed, but his exit speed is compromised from that.
And Foster's going to know that they've got 32 odd laps left to go, and he's going to be trying to nurse those tyres and not let these guys get away from him, so he can make a move. And it almost looks like he's trying to make a move now, but I know Foster's pretty cunning. You can never count him out.
Yes, he's as cunning as a fox that went to Cunning University sometimes, Foster. And I think he's just working on that at the moment, but he's got to be careful not to have Danny G start battling with him, because Danny G is right on his tail at the moment. If Danny G gets a sniff and can start battling with Foster, that's going to start chewing his tyres up and start dropping them off the back of Skurlock and, most importantly, Jason Martin. If Jason Martin can get a good lead built up here, he might be able to take it. But it's all going to be that tyre management now, and it's going to be a tricky thing to do. As you see, this time round, he's gone into the corner quite deep, and you can just see those cars catching up to him. It's that sort of accordion effect. Michael Skurlock had to lift a little bit through that corner, and that's allowed Foster to get close to him again. Foster's got another sniff on Skurlock. Danny G as well is having that sniff on Foster. They're all looking for those positions. And then behind them, you've got Joshua Carroll-Walden, Josh Micklemore, Hamish Gallagher all having a great battle. Nose to tail there, trying their best to fight for those positions.
And Josh Micklemore just got a little bit taily coming out of the previous corner, which allowed JCW to get away from him a little bit. But yeah, you can see Danny G is definitely hungry. He's having a look there at Foster. He's sizing him up. I think Foster's going to have to think about doing something sooner rather than later. Otherwise, he will fall into the hands of Danny G, I think.
And as you could have just seen in the very background there, behind the Joshua Carroll-Walden and Micklemore Gallagher battle, Jason Hartigan just got past Norman Clark, made it look easy, and now he's on an absolute flyer. He's coming up to the rest of those guys. He's going to catch up to them relatively quickly and start battling for those positions.
Yeah, it's certainly not over yet for Hartigan. He's absolutely charging.
And Foster gets a great drive off the corner. He goes lower and gets past Skurlock. He's made the move and he's made it stick. And this is going to allow Danny G to get underneath Skurlock as well. Because with Foster putting Skurlock out, he's going to lose a bit of speed through that mid-corner. So now he's got to battle with Danny G. Skurlock manages to keep the car just ahead at the moment, but it's not going to be enough because Danny G is going to come down the inside, just drive clean past Skurlock. He goes a little bit loose. Danny G's lost the car a little bit. The back end was stepping out, but he's managed to hold that position by the looks of it.
And that's also allowed Foster to get away from Danny G a little bit. And now he can get to work on chasing down Martin.
It's given him a little bit of breathing room.
And Martin! Martin's gone off.
Big moment for Martin, just going too fast out of the corner there. He's just got a bit too fast. The back end stepped out. He's had to put on the brakes. He's managed to save the car a bit, but that's taken him out of contention for this race and putting Foster into first place. That has been a great help for Foster's race there. So you can just see with that replay of Jason Martin, the back end steps out. He puts his foot down a little bit too early. And we've seen this a couple of times, the car getting a bit loose on the exit for him. It got too loose there, and that stepped the rear out on him. He managed to catch it enough to hit the wall in a relatively less damaging way than normal. So he didn't do too much damage to the car, but it's not going to help him out. But that's put him out of contention for this race. So that has dropped him back all the way to 12th position. That's going to hurt him for sure, but it's allowed Foster to have that breathing room. Now Danny G is in with a sniff for victory as well, and he's going to put pressure on Foster.
You absolutely know that with 24 laps to go, Danny G is going to put all the pressure he can on Foster and try to force him into a mistake. I mean, Foster is a very cool customer when he's being hunted down when he's in traffic, but I'm sure Danny G is going to try everything he possibly can.
Yeah, he is annoyingly cool sometimes on track, and when he's in control, he can be a very hard person to pass. So he's going to be just looking at controlling the race, and he's not going to be looking at going as fast as possible. He's just going to be controlling his pace, keeping a little bit of a gap from Danny G. He doesn't need to pull away by, a second a lap. He just needs to hold a bit of a gap here. If he can get that gap holding, he'll be okay. But just behind him, you can see Michael Skurlock now dropping into the grasp of Joshua Carroll Walden. He's bringing him close to him. Michael Skurlock's tyres are starting to fall away, and this is putting him into the grips of Joshua Carroll Walden, Josh Micklemore, Hamish Gallagher, and Jason Hartigan as well, up in 7th now. He's catching on to the back of those cars. He's not that much quicker at the moment. He's just sort of, I think he's got a little bit of damage on the car maybe. He's just taking it a little bit easier, but he has got pace over the rest of the field, so he's just trying to keep those tyres going. Up at the front, Danny G makes a move. He's trying to make a move on Foster, but Foster is just positioning the car so Danny G can't get the drive out the corner, and so he can't get past. This is the part now for Foster. He has to drive defensively, but try not to lose too much time, because there is a big pack of cars behind him that are going to want to take that position. Danny G might be looking for the pass here, might not have enough speed, but he's trying to put Foster off by placing his car underneath his. As Danny G gets better drive off, he's going to lose the tail a little bit, get worse drive off the corner, and that's going to mean he won't pass Foster there. But just that bit of a lunge will mean that Foster's eyes will have been off the road for a second. He's just trying to put Foster off.
And as you can see, Foster's doing that slow in, fast out, whereas Danny G is sort of catching up to him into the first phase of the corner and then getting a worse run coming out, which allows Foster to sort of step away from him.
Absolutely, and it's helping him out. And a little bit further down the pack, you can probably just about see Hamish Gallagher making a move on Josh Micklemore right now, and that's put Josh Micklemore into the grasp of Jason Hartigan. And Joshua Carroll-Walden makes a lunge down on Skurlock, putting Skurlock quite high up on the track. This is going to be a passing position for Joshua Carroll-Walden. Skurlock's probably not going to get the drive he needs off the start-finish line. Joshua Carroll-Walden's going to have a better entry into turns 1 and 2. He should be able to make this one stick if he can get the car planted. You can see Michael Skurlock running up the track a little bit, and that's going to scrub off time for him. The car gets a bit loose, and he's going to drop behind Hamish Gallagher possibly now. Great positioning there for JCW, just forcing Skurlock to run up the track and lose time. But this has all allowed Jason Hartigan to start catching up as well. As Jason Hartigan makes a look on Josh Micklemore now, he's just looking down the inside, just trying to place his car. So Josh Micklemore has to defend a little bit more, lose a little bit of pace.
And there you can see that telltale sign of the back of Josh Micklemore's car stepping out ever so slightly, compromising his exit speed.
Yeah, it's just losing that little bit of time on exit as Danny G makes another big lunge on the entry, but he's going to lose time on the exit once more. Foster gets a good exit there and keeps ahead. Jason Hartigan is now trying to get down the inside of Micklemore, and he's going to try and force Micklemore to go wide here, and that will help him get down the inside, push him wide and get that position, which he does. Brilliant move there from Hartigan as well, and he's coming up to Skurlock too. So Hartigan is back in this race. Edward Foster has got that lead. It's just about 2 to 3 tenths of a second at the moment, but that's all he needs. If he can stay there, he's going to be quite happy.
And you can see Danny G's getting a little bit of mid-corner push there, which is compromising him on corner exit.
And the caution is out.
Looks like Lachlan has crashed.
Yeah, Lachlan going round. I just saw the tail end of that one. We'll just go back, try and figure out what's happened. Looks like Lachlan has lost it going through turn number 2. Turn number 2, he's just done the same as Jason Martin, but he overcorrected there and spun the car up the track. Everybody managed to avoid there. He's got back running, so no harm, no foul. A great job for catching that one from Lachlan, but that's brought the caution out, and this is going to mean a restart again. Is anyone going to come in for fresh tyres? That's the question.
And they're all coming in.
They're all coming in.
Except
no, they're
for
not.
Hartigan.
Danny G and Hartigan have stayed out, as well as Josh Micklemore. So a few cars sticking out there now.
Big call. Big call.
We've got 13 laps to go. 12 laps to go now. So there's going to be a couple of cars between these guys now. However, on that restart, these guys are going to have such fresher tyres that it's not going to be too hard for them to get past, I imagine. Now, who's going to win off pit road? Looks like Foster's had a good stop. So is Joshua Carroll-Walden. And Hamish Gallagher as well. Hamish Gallagher getting an absolute blinder of a stop there. So Foster's led it out of the pit lane. So Foster will be lining up behind Jason Hartigan on this restart. Jason Hartigan is back up the front of the field in P2.
So this has thrown an absolute... this has really thrown a spanner in the works. Has it played into the hands of Danny G and Jason Hartigan though? They're going to have... They've got some old tyres now, and the guys behind them are going to be coming up very quick, aren't they?
If anyone, it's going to play into the hands of Hartigan a little bit more. His tyres are a bit fresher. They're about 10 laps fresher than the cars around him. So he's going to have a little bit better restart capability. He's going to be on that outside line as well as Foster. Danny G and Josh Micklemore will be on the inside line, remember. But having those fresher tyres on the outside line means you can just run around the corner. So it might pay off well for them. It's going to be a fascinating restart here. It is an absolute... it's a very ballsy call, you can say, to stay out there. I don't know how well it's going to pay off. It all depends if you get a caution, if it comes to a green-white checker, that could play into the hands of somebody like Danny G or Josh Mickelmore or Hartigan. However, if it goes green from here, then you've got to say Foster is looking good.
100%. I mean, there's not going to be 12 seconds between Danny G and Ed Foster at this stage, and he is really going to be able to motor.
That's it, and this is where keeping those extra set of tyres in the mix can pay off a little bit, of course, because you only got 4 sets of tyres to play with over the race session. So, you know, they've all managed to stay out there. They didn't come in too early. If some people may have come into a bit too early and thrown away that chance of getting the tyres for the end. But of course, all the lapped cars are going to fall out of position. Those leaders are going to be right next to each other. It's going to be a fascinating restart here.
Foster's going to be in, from what I can see, Foster's going to be in 4th with JCW in 5th.
Yes, so JCW is going to be starting on that lower line on those fresher tyres, so he could be in with a good shout as well. It's anyone's race, really. Jason Martin as well, he came in for those fresh tyres as well on that stop, so he's going to have nice, fresh, sticky tyres as well, so he might be able to jump up a few positions and get into damage control mode after that bit of snap oversteer we saw and his crash out of contention. But it's going to be very hard for these leaders to hold position. Of course, Jason Hartigan is going to want to try and get this win because he's been battling for it for all night. Of course, Josh Mickelmore had such a great lead earlier in this race. Danny G, he's been running up in that sort of top 4 all night long. They've been doing great jobs. But with those tyres being some 40 laps old in Danny G's case, 35 laps old in Jason Hartigan's case, and 40 laps old in Josh Mickelmore's case, I don't think they'll have the pace to do anything about them. These fresh tyres will just sail past them. So the lights will go out on the pace car and we'll be looking at the restart shortly. It's going to be a fascinating restart here. If everybody keeps it clean, this could be a great opportunity for JCW and Edward Foster. The pace car comes in. Danny G's going to lead away. He drops the hammer quite quickly. They get a lot of spinning on the wheels for both Danny G and Mickelmore. Expected to happen with those slightly worn tyres. Foster's going to be on the outside. He's going to want to try and get ahead of his teammate in Joshua Carroll Walden, and he does it. He comes down the inside, and you can just see those tyres of Foster. He's just flown past Hartigan. He's going to catch up to Mickelmore and Danny G now. You can just see he's having such an easy time getting round there. It's almost like a different class of car.
There's really nothing they can do about it, is there?
No, they are sitting ducks. Danny G's managed to get a good little bit of a lead at the moment, and if there is a caution thrown shortly, it could pay off for him still. But Danny G's lost it a little bit. Very close there. Great save for Danny G. He did just tap Foster a little bit. You can see those worn tyres are starting to cause issue. A car's gone off in the background. Foster's managed to get through, most importantly. If the caution comes out now, it's looking good for Foster. It looks like Matt Hunter's gone off in the background. We've remained green. Foster has taken the lead. Michael Skurlock is now second. Now Michael Skurlock is going to be chasing down Foster for that win. Now Foster just has to get his head down, keep ahead of Skurlock. JCW down the inside of Mickelmore now. And you can see Mickelmore just getting swallowed up by the pack. And there's a big crash in the background. We've got a big crash.
Like
Devin Stove and Jason Hartigan, unfortunately. Jason Hartigan getting caught out in that one. It looks like, I'm just trying to see exactly what happened there. Just going back to have a little bit of a look. Looks like Devin Stove's gone up, snapped up into the wall, and Hartigan has just gone into him. Nowhere he could go on that, unfortunately. He was a passenger in that incident.
Just unfortunately in the wrong place at the wrong time.
He was. If that had come out about half a lap sooner, that could have worked out perfectly for Danny G, though, because I think we're going to be looking at a green-white checker right now. And that could have been the difference between Danny G staying in front, because we've seen on those restarts, he's been able to keep a little bit ahead there. But this has worked out perfectly for Foster and Skurlock.
Absolutely. So these guys are going to be going as hard as they possibly can on the restart.
And don't forget Joshua Carroll-Walden as well. He's going to be starting right behind Michael Skurlock on those fresher tyres. Just behind him is Josh Micklemore on those very worn tyres. And you saw how quickly those guys were dropping back. Also, notably, is on that restart, you saw how much wheel spin they got. And that's the problem on those worn tyres, is you lose traction. You can't get the power onto the surface. Onto the surface of the track. And that means you can't drive away. And that's what cost those guys so many positions. So staying out was a big risk there, and it really didn't pay off too well for those guys. The biggest casualty in all of that was, unfortunately, Jason Hartigan again. Again, wrong place, wrong time for him there. He's dropped back to 13th position. A very unlucky position for him tonight, unfortunately. But not much he could have done in that situation.
No, unfortunately, his finishing position isn't going to reflect his pace or his ability tonight. Like you said, wrong place in the wrong time at the wrong time, and once again, he's just become the victim of bad luck.
Yes, and we saw at the start of the season with Danny G and Jason Martin, they had some bad luck at the beginning of the year, and it can all turn around for you as a driver. Luck is a big thing in motorsport, and especially on oval racing. Skill is a definite part of it, but sometimes you're just in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. You are just a passenger in those moments, and you've just got to accept sometimes that it's just an unlucky position. I guess one consoling factor for Hartigan is he will be able to probably finish at least in around 13th, 12th position, so get some points from tonight, and will hopefully help him towards his chances of getting into the chase. We still got a few races to go there, so he still has time, but it was an unfortunate night for him. Another person to suffer there was, of course, Josh Micklemore, of course. Fantastic job leading this race for so long with such immense pace as well for Micklemore. Superior, just stunning pace earlier on in the race. We saw Micklemore just absolutely flying away from everybody.
Yeah, he certainly did have the pace, and once again, just a matter of I guess Josh zigged when he should have zagged, and maybe pitted that little bit earlier for tyres.
It's a risk you take, and if it pays off, you're a hero. But when it doesn't pay off, you just go, well, that's that, I guess. Unfortunately, sometimes these things don't pay dividends for you, and they don't always pay off. But when they do, you look like a hero. When they don't, you've just got to accept it sometimes. Gambling is always a tricky thing to do.
Absolutely. The roll of the dice, doesn't always fall your way, and sometimes you've just got to take it.
Exactly. It's the trouble about gambling is it's when it's good, and when it's bad, it's very, very bad. But so far, it's worked out very well for Foster and Skurlock. It's going to be a race to the line between those guys. Will Joshua Carroll-Walden be able to get up there a little bit higher as well? It's going to be interesting for that. So we're coming around. We've got 2 laps to go. The pace car's lights are out, so it's not going to be a green-white checker per se. We've got can have 2 laps over the line. So, sorry, it is a green-white checker. Sorry, my brain went dead there for a moment. So we'll go green, we'll go white, and then it's the finish. So 2 laps of furious action now for Foster to just hold out in front. So he's going to have the chance on the restart, that lower line. So he's just got to hold position and try and take that initiative now.
And you know that these guys are going to leave absolutely nothing on the table. Skurlock can get a blinding start, and he will be doing absolutely everything he can to get in front of Foster.
He will try everything he can, and as I said, one to watch out for on this restart is JCW. Joshua Carroll-Walden's pace car comes in. Foster's going to back him up. He gets a good launch. He manages to get a good start.
Oh,
Joshua
JCW in the wall.
And, there's a big crash behind him as well with Hamish Gallagher. And I didn't see who that was with. Hamish Gallagher and
Raymond Yeager, Norman Clark.
Norman Clark, yeah. Got caught up there and into the wall. But behind them as well, there was another car having a bit of an accident as well. I couldn't see. There was a few cars having an accident on that restart.
JCW didn't have such a good restart either. He clipped the wall on the restart. I think maybe I don't know. He might have been escorted wide. I didn't see, but I did see him hit the wall. So this is going to be interesting. So this is the final lap. So does this mean the race is going to finish under the safety car?
I'll have to see, because sometimes they do a final green-white checker because it's got a second chance. Yeah, just looking back, there was a couple of crashes there between a few people. Joshua Carroll-Walden just got that terrible start there. We'll find out in a moment.
Failing that, I will show the 1 lap to go by hybrid racing simulations.
Yes, of course. We'll get the sponsorship out the way.
Absolutely.
Of course, track cams for Gourmet as well. Trackcams22.com for those lovely looking cameras.
Absolutely, with Abruzzi for their racewear, their custom sim racing wear, gloves, boots, shirts, jackets. Virtual Motorsport Mentor, hybrid racing simulations for all your sim racing needs. Brett is the man to talk to, and of course Juan from iLiveries, who makes amazing liveries. I've actually just got 2 new liveries done by Juan, and we'll be launching those tomorrow, and they look phenomenal.
And so the green-white checker was cancelled. So it is a victory finally for Edward Foster. It has finally come his way in the Cup. Been a long time coming for him. He's been up there and thereabouts all season long and having some great consistent races. Michael Skurlock comes in second, with Danny G taking a fantastic 3rd position. He stayed out there on those tyres, and it did pay off for him at the end. He managed to get in the top 3 there. Josh Micklemore just scraping past into 4th position. So he finished in 4th in the end. Not a bad position. JCW, Joshua Carroll-Walden, in 5th position. Stephen Williams doing a great job from 22nd position up to 6th place. Lachlan managed to finish 7th in the end, despite a couple of spins in that race. He finished in the top 10. Ayrton Smith came in 8th position. Bradley Allison, 9th. 10th position was Jason Martin. He managed to get back into the top 10 after that earlier mishap. Hamish Gallagher finished in 11th at the end. Norman Clark, 12th. Phil Otto, 13th. Jason Hartigan, 14th. 15th was Raymond Yeager. Matt Hunter in 16th. 17th was Tristan Koch, with Brendan Bartlett in 18th. Aidan Schultz in 19th. 20th with Devon Stove. Darren Burnfield in 21st. Kai Sloggett, 22nd. But brilliant job for Edward Foster. He is going to be so happy about that, I'm sure. He's taken 2 wins in the ANZCAR series in the past 2 nights, taking the win in the National Cup last night. Sorry, the Grand National even. And, of course, the Cup series tonight. I'm sure he's going to be stoked about that one. And from a bit of a ropey start of that race, you've got to say, with the cautions, to a brilliant finish.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant finish. And like I said, you know, Foster really knows how to put that strategy together. He was working his plan, and the plan worked out for him brilliantly.
It did indeed. And what we'll do is we'll grab down our race winner of Edward Foster for the JP Motorsport team. Edward Foster, JP Simshed Racing, congratulations on the win in the Cup Championship.
It's about time, isn't it?
We may have said that over broadcast. We may have said that.
The old dinosaur has made the win.
Yeah, well, yeah. What's the phrase about a pot and a kettle? I can't quite remember. But anyway, yeah, it's been coming. It's been coming.
Well done, mate.
Thanks, man. We just put ourselves in the position so many times, and it just hasn't worked out for whatever reason. And yeah, tonight it worked out. You know, so I've had really. I don't like using the phrase bad luck, but I've had things sort of not play as well as they might have done in certain races leading up to now. And tonight, I probably, there were probably 3 or 4 cars that had better pace than I did, but things worked out. So, well, I'll take it. Means JP Simshed has swept the week as well. Of course, we had Joshy win in the trucks, and I managed to get the Grand National win on last night, and obviously popping up with a win again tonight. So yeah, just stoked, really, really happy.
Yeah, that's it. We were saying about your form in the Grand National Series. Was it 3 wins in a row now, or is it 4? I can't remember
4.
actually. Yeah, it's quite a few. But yeah, doing absolutely fantastic work there. But it's been a long time coming in the Cup. It looked like you were just looking after your tyres a bit through that race, or was it just more unable to keep pace with the front guys?
At the start, I couldn't keep pace with them because they were just running a completely different line to the one that I'd practiced with, that I found to be the best, and just getting so much of a better drive off the corners than I was, and I tried to copy them. But of course, I hadn't practiced that line at all. So, just trying to copy him, it wasn't really working out that well. I sort of managed to find a bit of a happy medium. But the longer the run went on, my original line that I was running sort of came good. And I started to not reel them in, but I was able to hold my own. Skurlock was up behind me, and I was able to sort of keep him, not at arm's length, but, sort of keep him behind at that stage. But short run pace was probably my Achilles heel tonight. So to finish it off the way we did with those short runs was nerve-wracking, to say the least.
I can imagine, yes. We did sort of note that during the race that you did seem to have better long run pace than short run pace. Got to mention as well that it seemed like the JP Simshed boys had the early pit strategy call as well, because you guys came in a lot earlier than some of the other cars around you on that first pit stop.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't really talk too much about it, to be honest. We didn't think that there was any chance the race was going to go green for the length that it did, and the first few laps of the race sort of proved us right in that regard until everybody sort of cleaned their act up a little bit, and we really got going. And then we had that really long green flag stretch, and we're like, okay, well, I was sort of thinking in the back of my mind that we'd probably pit just to break the race in half. Of course, you always run the risk on a shorter track like this of going a lap down and then getting trapped a lap down if the caution came out. But I know JCW went a bit earlier than I did, and I kind of was always planning a little bit of an undercut, but not as much as he wanted to do. And we sort of came out nose to tail and managed to lead a few laps, and then the caution came out, and it couldn't have fallen better. It honestly could not have fallen better for us, because if it had stayed green, those Mitch boys, they weren't too far behind, and they were quick. I mean, Josh Mickelmore tonight was unbelievable, just class of his own. And he was just, if he caught me on 20 lap fresher tyres or whatever it is, that was going to be the end of it. Like, there's no shadow of doubt about that. So the caution really saved us, sort of played into our hands. I didn't expect those guys to run that long, so I didn't expect them to have be coming at us with the advantage that they had. But yeah, look, it all played out in the end, didn't it? Managed to have a nice little fight there with Danny G, and managed to keep him behind. And then, coming down the pit road, he kind of faked that he was coming down at the last minute. He decided to stay out, and those guys have stayed out. And we've come back out with fresh tyres, and fortunately we're able to restart right on the back of them. So, they did what they could to keep us behind, but they were completely fair about it, as they always are. And yeah, it's really good. Like I said, we were overdue, and we got one.
Well, absolutely. We were just saying at the end of that race that if that caution had come out about half a lap prior, that could have been Danny G seeing the victory there, because it was so close at the end there. Obviously, those fresher tyres really did pay off quite well at the end. Was it a little bit tricky for passing tonight as well?
Look, yes and no. I mean, passing here is definitely possible. But sometimes it requires either the cooperation of both parties or the persuasion of the guy you're trying to overtake, perhaps. There's tracks like this, especially with the flatter turns and not so much banking. Generally it kind of lends itself to a little bit of body contact and so on. But I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think I really had any touches with anyone all night. So, when you're on fresh tyres, yeah, it's easy to go shooting past people because you've got so much of an advantage. But there was a point in the race where I was up behind Skurlock, and I really didn't know where I was going to make a move unless he made a mistake. And he did make a small mistake, which allowed me through. So, Skurlock being as professional as he is, didn't try anything silly either. So, this is something that I was saying to the rest of my team the other night when we had a bit of a chat after the Grand National. how much of a privilege it is to be racing with the guys that we're racing with and the guys that we've got in this series. They're just such, they take it seriously when they're out there on track. They're professional, they're clean. There's a lot of respect given between everyone. And that's why we see the level of racing that we do in this series. And it's something that you don't always see in sim racing, is that amount of mutual respect between people, but it's certainly here. And it's always a pleasure racing all those guys and just seeing where you stack up against some of the best guys in the country.
Yeah, it's always great to see you guys, and there's always some great racing out there, especially at the front of the pack. All the way through the field tonight, we saw some great racing, but obviously the front of the pack was where the main action was tonight, and was last time out at Kentucky as well. So some good races we've had over the past couple of days, but finally that win has come for you. Before we let you go, usual shout-outs and things like that for you.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing I want to shout out to is the entire rest of the JP Simshed team. They're just awesome guys to work with, and we're just going from strength to strength as a team. We've always got somebody in these races that's sort of in and around where the fight for the win is, and just about everybody in the team is in the form of their life at the moment. These guys, they push me along, and they push each other along as well. So it's fantastic working with them. And of course, the sponsors. We've got awesome sponsors, JP Simshed, and it just seems to be a team that a lot of these partners want to work with. So it's awesome to be part of. So we've got Goodyear Auto Care, which is on my car course, and Abruzzi Raceway and Track Racer and Drive Sim, VR Cover, Cars for Hope. All those guys. So I'm really, really happy for all of them as well to be able to bring them a win. So we'll see what we can. Got to take a deep breath and come back next week. Well, we've got a week off next week, don't we? It was off week, and we'll come back, and we're really close to chase time now as well. So it's all starting to get really exciting.
Yeah, of course. After a week off, a rare week off, we've got 4 races to go, and then it's the chase. So obviously you're pretty much set into that now, of course. So hopefully we'll see you back up in the booth before the chase. Hopefully you can get another couple of W's under the belt before we get into the chase season.
Yeah, I'd love to. That's going to be the aim, but I think everybody's aiming that way, and there's probably about 7 or 8 guys who you could put a finger on and say that they've got a chance of winning week in, week out. So it's not going to be easy, but look, if things play for us like they did tonight, maybe we'll be okay and grab another couple. I'm just going to enjoy this one for now.
Enjoy it while you can. Enjoy yourself a bit of a beer or something like that for this one, and we'll see you again sometime soon. Thanks so much. Thank you so much, Edward Foster.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, guys.
Edward Foster there, of course, of the JP Simshed team. No bias, of course, from the commentary booth, especially from from JP himself. But next up, we're going to grab down Michael Skurlock, of course, our second place finisher for the Pace Syndicate team. So, Michael Skurlock, congratulations on that P2 finish.
Yeah, thanks, Carly. Thanks, JP. I thought you forgot about me there. Edward taking up all my airtime.
Yeah, he was just taking up all the airtime, mate. But we didn't forget about you. Congratulations, Mick.
Yeah, cheers. No, good on to Edward too. He drove well.
He's had a bit of a dry streak in the cup, so he needed a moment just to let his joy out there. Obviously, you've not had so much of a dry streak. You've been up there and thereabouts pretty much, well, for a while now. Another P2 finish, a top 3 finish for yourself again. That's going to really help the top of the table for you. You're pretty much solidly up there now. What a great race from you. How did that one feel from your point of view?
Well, I don't know. The car was totally different to how it normally is around here. So normally you'd get like a tight car. This was just crazy. This is just hanging it out. But it was also, there wasn't a time really where the things warmed up where you could put your foot down. So it was always on edge. It was always on that verge of coming around, and you couldn't really just drive out a slide either. If you tried to keep your foot in it, it would just slowly keep going around until you just ended up going all the way around, which unfortunately happened to Jason, I think, near the end there. But if it wasn't for yellow flags, I wouldn't have been anywhere. I think I'd probably be 7th, 8th. I couldn't really come to grips with it,
No, it looked like a bit of a struggle out there. We saw you had a relatively good start and worked your way up the field and then dropped back a bit in that long green period. I think it was from that third restart. I think you dropped back a few positions, of course. But it did look really tough out there. And it did not look that fun to be racing.
Oh, it was fun. It's just, yeah, I don't know. On that third restart, it's had older tyres than everyone else because me and Jason stayed out. And if it was just two people, I could run the pace. But once I see people in the rear view, because like it's around there, everyone closes right in on the corners, and then they spread out on the straights. But all you can see in your top rear view is just the car right up you, and you start freaking out. So I'm not good with that. That's something I've got to get better at, is just withstanding the pressure from behind.
Yeah, it can be very stressful.
Let a secret out there now, didn't I? I'm going to practice.
You did, indeed. Well, I said actually in the broadcast, of course, when you've got that bright purple car of Jason Martin in your rear view mirror, it's quite intimidating sometimes. So I don't blame you at all. And it is.
I don't like having big purple things in my rear at all.
Not a fan of that, obviously.
Well, there goes my PG rating.
Yeah, before we carry on with that, anyone you'd like to shout out to tonight, Mr. Skurlock?
Yeah, just out to everyone that races. Everyone did well there. I thought at the start we were going to have a yellow flag, like the whole thing was going to be under yellow, but everyone pulled it together and we had some of the longest runs we've ever had. So it was awesome that everyone just got patient and just relaxed into it a bit. Obviously, you guys for putting on the show. Pace Syndicate, Blip Clothing, BLIP Clothing, Worm Paints, and yeah, everyone puts the league on. Edward, Danny G, and Matty Hunter. Thank you very much.
Awesome, and thank you so much for joining us, mate. We will hopefully see you again. 4 races, obviously, until the chase. So we're getting close now. Off week next week, but when we come back, hopefully we'll see you in the box again soon.
Yeah, cheers, boys. Thank you.
Michael Skurlock there for Pace Syndicate Racing. Another great finish for him. He's been very strong, especially towards the end of this season. But next up, we've got Danny G, of course, had a very strong start to the season for the Mitch Motorsport team and has kept strong and kept up to the sharp end of the championship standings. Another good finish. And hello, Danny G. Congratulations on that P3.
Yeah, g'day, fellas. Yeah, thank you. It was, I think it was pretty lucky there at the end because I was on the old tyres and I didn't think I'd have a chance to stay up in the top 3. But lucky that caution came out at the end and froze the field.
Yeah, it looked tricky on that restart. We saw both yourself and Josh Micklemore losing a lot of traction on that restart. The tyres were just spinning around very, very quickly when he tried to put the power down. What was the decision to stay out there on the old tyres rather than pitting for some fresh ones?
Well, there was only going to be 10 laps. I was sort of banking on a quick yellow, and then hopefully we'd get a yellow on the green-white checkered, pretty much like we did. I just wasn't out front at the time. And I needed probably about another 4 or 5 cars to stay out, but it was only 3 of us, and I knew straight away it was going to be difficult from there.
Yeah, we did say it was very close for you to actually get that one, because I think if it was about half a lap sooner for that caution to come out, you would have got that victory, I think. It was very, very close there, but you did end up just losing those positions. But only dropping to 3rd place is a really good result considering the difference, the disparity on the tyres. I think it was about 40 laps difference on the tyres from that restart. So great restart again, and great pace from your team as well tonight. We saw yourself, Jason Martin, of course, who had that spin, unfortunately, and Josh Micklemore as well. Just tremendous pace out there once more, and it was a 1-2-3 start as well for the team. So you guys are obviously doing really well in getting the pace of these cars working for you.
Yeah, I think we all thought we had a shot to win that. I know Josh was pretty much untouchable in the beginning, but once he fell behind, then Jace had a shot. He messed up, and I thought I was slightly faster than Edward on that green flag run at the end there. I just couldn't get around him. I didn't want to touch him up too early. I wasn't desperate enough. It was just unlucky the caution flag came out, but I did get a couple of good runs on him, and I thought, if I just keep working him for about 10 laps, I could get it. But it wasn't to be. I'll take the 3rd place.
Yes, and just speaking about those runs, because there was one major sort of moment, I think, towards the end of there. You had a bit of a loose car coming out the corner and just very, very minor contact towards Foster. Very well held there. But from your perspective, was that a bit of a brown alert moment?
Was that just off the restart? I know I got close. I'm not sure if he hit me or not.
I think it was the restart. Yeah, it was. It was. If it wasn't touching, it was pretty much a cigarette paper between you two guys.
Yeah, I was trying to dime in the corner, so I'd go in low, sort of go up high in the centre, and then come back down low. And I was just trying to pinch because I was having a pretty good drive off. So if I could just straighten the exit, which is what I was trying to do, so I had to pinch him down a bit. But I knew once he got to me, it was going to be over.
Yeah, it worked out well in the end, though. You got yourself another podium finish for the season. It's been a great season for yourself so far as well. You've been up at the sort of pointy end of the championship as well, and obviously we're going to be looking at the chase in 4 races' time. How are you feeling about going into the chase?
Yeah, not too bad. There's only a couple of tracks I'm worried about. I don't know if I'm going to end up on top of the points, even with the 4 drop rounds. I think a lot of that, because I unfortunately lost a lot in Indianapolis. So I'm not actually sure who's going to end up on top, but could be interesting. And I'm only really worried about the Roval, I guess. I'm not too good on the road courses, but that's still quite a while away, so a lot of time to practice.
Yeah, you got some time before we hit that, of course, and a few different races before then. But hopefully things will go well in the chase campaign for you, because as I said, you've had a fantastic season, a very strong season of being up in the top end of the championship at least. Just a very strong season all in all for you. So congratulations, and hopefully we'll see you up in the booth again. But before I let you go, anyone you'd like to shout out to tonight?
Yeah, Josh, Jace, Bob King for the paint jobs, and yeah, we'll try and get these cars back up to victory lane the next couple of weeks. I think we got a week off now, actually.
We do indeed.
Yeah.
Yes, we've got a week off next week, which will be nice. So enjoy your week off, and we will see you when we come back to racing. Thank you so much, Danny G, for Mitch Motorsport.
Too easy. Thank you, and thank you to you fellas too.
Always a pleasure. So, good race in the end. It started off a little bit ropey, but in the end, it came good. And did it come good? That was one heck of a finish, JP.
100% there, Carl. That was a great finish. It did look like it was going to be a safety car fest at the start, but everyone seemed to calm down and get to the task at hand of racing. I probably would have liked to have seen the race finish under green, but a win's a win, and Ed certainly deserved it. He, great strategy, great driving by everybody. So, yeah, awesome running.
Absolutely, another great finish. This season has been full of them. So, as we said, we've got a week off next time out, so we'll be back with you on July 30th for 100 laps at the Michigan Raceway. So, until then, we wish you all a good night and wish you well from the Abruzzi ANZCAR Cup. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.